Welcome to Cheater Confessions. Let's get started with today's story. I met Miranda 10 years ago. She was smart, beautiful, and had this infectious energy that made life exciting. From the moment we got together, I thought she was the one. She had this way of making me feel like the luckiest man alive. We got married after 3 years of dating, and the first few years were great. We traveled, laughed, and built a comfortable life together. I worked hard, and she enjoyed the life I provided. I never minded. It made me happy to see her happy. But then things changed. At first, it was little things. She spent more time on her phone, started going out more often, and began dressing differently. I didn't think much of it. People change, life changes. Maybe she just needed a break from routine. Then she made a new friend. Her name was Lacey. Lacey was different from Miranda's usual friends. She was single, loud, and reckless. She drank too much, flirted with anything that moved, and had a way of making Miranda act different. Suddenly, my wife wasn't my wife anymore. She was becoming someone else. She started staying out late, partying every weekend, and spending ridiculous amounts of money. When I questioned her about it, she'd brush me off. "Oh, relax, Paul, I'm just having fun. Don't be so boring, it's just a few drinks. We're married, not trapped." At first, I let it go, but the arguments started coming more frequently. "Miranda, you're barely home anymore," I told her one night. She rolled her eyes. "Because home is boring, Paul. All we do is work, eat, and sleep. I need some excitement." "Excitement or an escape?" She scoffed. "God, you sound like a jealous ex. Maybe if you stopped acting like my dad, I wouldn't have to escape." That hit deep. I clenched my jaw, trying to keep my anger in check. "I'm your husband, Miranda, not some controlling jerk trying to lock you in a cage." She crossed her arms, her tone sharp. "Then stop acting like one. Wanting to spend time with my wife isn't controlling, it's normal." She let out a bitter laugh. "Normal? Paul, normal is exhausting. I don't want to be stuck in this boring routine for the rest of my life." I took a deep breath, trying to reason with her. Marriage isn't about parties and excitement every day. It's about commitment, stability. She smirked, shaking her head. "You really don't get it, do you?" "Get what?" She crossed her arms. "I'm bored, and if I want to go out with my friends, I will. And I don't want to keep having arguments like this. I'm tired of it. You don't get to tell me what to do." Then she met my eyes, her lips curling into a smug grin. "I can replace you right now if I want to." The air between us shifted, heavy with something unspoken. I stared at her, my stomach twisting. "What did you just say?" I asked, my voice quiet but firm. She shrugged, completely unfazed. "You heard me." Something inside me snapped. I wasn't sure if it was anger, disbelief, or heartbreak. Maybe all three. I exhaled slowly, keeping my emotions in check. "Wow. So that's where we are now?" She sighed dramatically. "Oh, don't be so sensitive, Paul. I'm just saying I have options." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Yeah? Well, so do I." She rolled her eyes and walked past me, grabbing her purse. "Whatever. I'm going out." I didn't stop her. I didn't even respond. But something changed in me that night. I couldn't shake the feeling that she meant exactly what she said. And suddenly, I needed to know if I was already replaced. The next few days, I started paying closer attention, watching, listening. And then, a few nights later, she came home past midnight. I was sitting on the couch, pretending to scroll through my phone, but I was waiting for her. She stumbled in, kicking off her heels, laughing to herself. She didn't notice me right away. Then I caught it. A scent, not hers, not mine. A man's cologne. "Where were you?" I asked, my tone casual. She jumped slightly, turning to me with a guilty look before quickly recovering. "Jesus, Paul, you scared me." I didn't respond. I just watched her. She faked a yawn. "I was out with Lacey, obviously. We had drinks. You know, girls' night." I stood up slowly. "Who else was there?" She raised an eyebrow. "What's with the interrogation?" I took a step closer, looking her in the eyes. "You smell like a man's cologne." For the first time, I saw hesitation in her face. It lasted barely a second before she waved a hand dismissively. "Oh, come on, Paul. We were at a crowded bar. I probably brushed up against someone." I clenched my jaw. "Yeah, maybe." I didn't push it. Not yet. But the feeling in my gut? It was screaming at me now. Then, the next day, I saw something else. She had just come out of the shower wearing only a towel. She reached for something in the closet, and that's when I noticed it. Dark bruises on her hip. I frowned. What happened? She glanced down, then quickly pulled her towel tighter around herself. Oh, I bumped into the counter last night. Stupid thing. She laughed awkwardly, but I wasn't laughing. That looks like a handprint, Miranda. Her expression flickered, just for a second. Then she rolled her eyes. Oh my God, Paul. Stop overanalyzing everything. You're being ridiculous. I let it go. But deep down I knew. Something was wrong. And I was going to find out what. The next night Miranda got dressed like she was going to a gala. She stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her short black dress, smoothing out invisible wrinkles. Her makeup was flawless, her lips a deep shade of red. She took her time curling her hair, making sure every strand was perfect. She was glowing, excited. Not once did she look at me. I sat on the bed, watching. My stomach was in knots. She was going somewhere important, somewhere she wanted to look her best for. And it wasn't for me. Where are you going? I asked. She glanced at me through the mirror. Out with Lacey. That was all. No explanation, no hesitation. She grabbed her purse and walked toward the door. Don't wait up. Then she left. A minute later, I grabbed my keys and followed her. Keeping a safe distance, I tailed her downtown as she drove to an upscale lounge, one of those trendy spots known for expensive cocktails and dim lighting. I parked across the street and waited. She stepped out of her car and walked inside, her heels clicking against the pavement. Miranda sat at a booth in the corner. Lacey was next to her, but they weren't alone. There were two men at their table, well-dressed, confident, laughing. It was a couple's date. I felt my blood turn cold. Miranda was completely engaged with the man next to her. She leaned in close, whispering in his ear, laughing at his jokes, touching his arm. He smirked, sliding a hand onto her thigh. I gripped my phone and started taking pictures. I wanted to believe I was wrong, that maybe this wasn't what it looked like. Maybe she was just being friendly. Maybe I was being paranoid. Then it happened. She turned toward him smiling, and she kissed him. My heart slammed in my chest. I forced myself to keep taking pictures. I watched as she ran her fingers through his hair, as he rested his hand on her waist, as they looked at each other like they'd been doing this for a while. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This was a secret life, and I wasn't a part of it. They stayed at the lounge for about an hour, drinking, laughing, touching. I documented every betrayal, taking picture after picture. Then they got up. Miranda linked her arm through his as they walked outside, Lacey and the other guy leading the way. They looked comfortable together, like this wasn't new. When they reached the parking lot, they all got into a car, one that belonged to one of the men they were with. Miranda slid into the front seat while Lacey and the other guy got in the back. I gripped the steering wheel and followed from a distance, my stomach twisting. A few blocks later, they pulled into a hotel parking lot. Right before they walked inside, Miranda turned to him, smiling. Then she kissed him again, without hesitation, without guilt. Then they disappeared inside. I sat in my car for a long time, staring at the doors. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My wife was cheating on me. But now, I had proof. Now it was time to make my move. The next morning, I woke up early. Miranda was still asleep, her back turned to me, breathing steadily like nothing was wrong, like she hadn't been with another man the night before. I got dressed, grabbed my keys, and drove straight to a lawyer's office. I told him everything, the reckless spending, the late nights, the constant lying. Then, I showed him the pictures, Miranda at the lounge, kissing another man, walking into a hotel with him. He reviewed the evidence and assured me this would work in my favor. That was all I needed to hear. We drafted the divorce papers immediately. I made sure everything was set up to protect myself. Then I waited. For 2 days I acted like nothing had changed. I smiled, made small talk, even kissed her goodbye when she left. She had no idea that I was about to disappear from her life completely. On the third night, it was finally time to make my move. It was past midnight. Miranda was fast asleep, her breathing deep and steady. I stood in the doorway, watching her for a few seconds. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel angry. I felt done. I turned away and got to work. Most of my things were already packed and hidden in my car trunk. I grabbed the last of my essentials, my laptop, documents, and a few clothes. After that, I went to the kitchen. I pulled out a folder and placed it on the table. Inside were the divorce papers, already signed by me. Next to them, I placed the photos I had taken days ago and had printed earlier that day, clear evidence of her betrayal. Pictures of her kissing another man, walking into a hotel with him. Everything she thought she had hidden. And one final thing, our marriage certificate torn in half, a statement that said it all. I walked through the house one last time, the place that used to be home, the life that used to be mine. Then I walked out the door, and I didn't look back. I drove for hours, just the road, my car, and the distance growing between me and my old life. Around 3 a.m. I reached another city and checked into a hotel. Nothing fancy, just a place to stay for the night. Inside the room, I locked the door and got to work. I pulled out my phone, logged into our joint bank account, and transferred every cent into my personal account. After that, I canceled all our joint credit cards one by one. She had no idea. I turned off my phone and tossed it on the bed. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. The next morning, I turned my phone back on. 37 missed calls, all from Miranda. I didn't listen to the voicemails, didn't read the texts. I already knew what they'd say. First confusion, then anger, and eventually desperation. She kept calling for days, her messages shifting from furious to pathetic. "Paul, what the hell is wrong with you? Where are you? Did you seriously just walk out? You're being ridiculous." The rage didn't last long. Soon her tone changed. "Paul, I don't understand. Please just talk to me." And finally, pure pleading. "I messed up. Let's talk. Please." I never responded. I let her scream into the void. A week passed and I found a small apartment in the city. Nothing special, just enough for me to start over. It was quiet, simple, exactly what I needed. A few months later, the divorce was finalized. She got one thing, the house. That was it. No money, no savings, no alimony, nothing. She was furious. She tried to fight it, claiming I had blindsided her and calling the whole thing unfair. But the evidence was on my side. Her reckless spending, her infidelity, her betrayal. She had no case. The judge gave her the house, but here's the kicker. There was a mortgage, a big one, and without me she couldn't afford the payments. She tried to manage on her own, got a roommate, worked more hours, probably cut back on her reckless spending, but it wasn't enough. 3 months later, she couldn't keep up with the payments. A friend told me she had to move out. The house, the one thing she thought she'd keep, was gone. I wasn't surprised. She made her choice, and I made mine. One evening, my phone lit up with a message. "Paul, I need to see you. Please." I stared at the message for a moment before locking my phone. A few hours later, another one appeared. "I made a mistake. I miss you." I smirked and tossed my phone onto the table. A week passed. Then, she showed up. I wasn't expecting it, but when I opened the door, there she was, Miranda. She didn't look like the woman I once knew. Her hair was messy, her skin pale, dark circles under her eyes. No expensive makeup, no designer bags, just an exhausted, broken version of herself. She looked at me, her voice barely above a whisper. I lost everything. I didn't say a word. She swallowed hard. Jonas left. I don't have anywhere to go. I leaned against the doorframe. That's not my problem. Her eyes filled with panic. Paul, please. I was stupid. I thought I wanted more, but I had everything I needed with you. I let out a short, cold chuckle. Yeah? Well, I don't need you anymore. Her lip trembled. You're really done? I nodded. I was done the moment you said you could replace me. She just stood there, silent, like she was waiting for me to change my mind. But I didn't. I shut the door in her face. She stood outside for a while. I heard her sniffle, maybe whisper something under her breath. But I didn't care. I turned away and sat down, feeling nothing but relief. Thank you for watching.